Divine Convocation comes with a commander who utilizes the convoke mechanic, which up until recently wasn't really too popular. A lot of the older convoke cards were either semi-big creatures that would enter the battlefield for a fraction of their casting cost, or utilized for small creature decks. But you'll also find extremely useful cards that synergize with Kasla that weren't added to the precon. One such card is Benny Bragg's Zoologist that seems like it was designed for this deck, considering that you'll likely be creating tokens almost every turn. While his main focus is creature tokens, they're what's actually the driving force of a decent Convoke deck. Another great older Convoke card that wasn't included in the precon is Conclave Phalanx, that might not seem like a lot, but gives you the confidence of getting ahead with life points when you need it. Tons and tons of small creature tokens that let you ramp out the high mana cast Convokers can be achieved with the following cards. White Sun's Zenith is a better version of Martial Coup, and for 1 extra mana you get so much more than the vanilla 1/1 creatures from Secure the Waste that's already in the precon. An overkill card with a ridiculous casting cost would be Stormherd, if you're willing to spend 10 mana on a spell. But what a fantastic spell it is in this deck, right? There's also Finale of Glory that allows some massive shenanigans when you have at least 12 mana available to spend to cast it. It gets even more interesting when we utilize creatures that give us some nice small 1/1 tokens. Ovika Enigma Goliath is an amazing card to have on the table when you cast one of the spells I mentioned a moment ago. It's a very cheap alternative to Mondra Glory Dominus, which also works well in this deck. The precon has the Locust God that gives you a tiny creature you can tap to convoke whenever you draw a card already, but what about getting a nice shark whenever you cast a non-creature spell? Shark Typhoon does that. Not enough big creatures that synergize with the deck? Adeline, Resplendent, Kafar gets bigger and bigger the more creatures you have and gives you an attacking 1/1 for every opponent. There's several other cards that can bring you tiny creatures on the table too, so there's plenty to choose from. They can also be reused after being tapped for Convoke, with Dramatic Reversal that untaps them all for 2 mana. You might also like to have some removal potential coming from Burn Down the House, but also have an option to create 3 very powerful creature tokens. By the way, having swarms of tiny creatures is great for convoking, but there's nothing stopping you from making them into juggernauts with this cool guy. There are also cards like Felder Retreat, strengthening the deck immensely, that can bring some very useful tokens. Now for some Convokers that weren't added in the precon. Clever Concealment is one of the greatest tools a deck with Convoke can have, letting you phase out any number of your own lone land permanents at instant speed. If you're running a lot of artifacts though, they could also use Convoke. Chief Engineer is your guy for that. And speaking of great artifacts, Obelisk of Urd has Convoke, but Oketra's Monument doesn't, yet it synergizes very well with the deck's mechanic and might be a fine addition. And now, the best card save for final. Halo Fountain is a very versatile artifact as it untaps, creates more tokens, draws cards, and even becomes the win con, depending on how far you've gotten with creating your hordes of tokens. Please share in the comments which cards you think would work well with this deck in your opinion, and what do you think of the other March of the Machines precons. Have an amazing day and catch you in another video.